So I made a number of items for my Fallout costume, so I'm going to run through some of the smaller items all together right now. So the first item is these packs, the Radaway, the Irradiated Blood, and the Blood packs themselves. Now these actually started off as refillable blood bags that you can buy on Amazon, so I picked up one of those, and then I just took a pair of scissors and basically trimmed them so they look a little bit more like, you know, the in-game shape, or as close as I can get with this particular starting part. And then the next thing I had to do is make a custom label. Now I actually started looking at the in-game version, and it's kind of a blurry low-res thing, so I didn't want to use that because it wouldn't look good on this scale. So I did some research, and I was able to read right here, it says touch branding, which is kind of an odd thing to have, and it turns out that the labels themselves are actually based on a piece of marketing made by a company called Touch Branding. You can actually see where they have photoshopped out the word .com at the end of their web address. It also explains why there's this weird blank section here, because it used to say, "We'll give our blood for good branding," and why it says for creative use only, which is very odd. Now obviously I couldn't use this high-res image because it wouldn't make much sense to have a bunch of advertisement for how great Touch Branding is on my prop, although I'm sure somehow, some way, Bethesda will still send Touch Branding a cease and desist for using their original artwork since they copied it. So that wasn't going to work, and so what I did is I started from scratch in GIMP, and actually using this as a template, I actually built my own labels off of them. And so I did a bunch of research onto radiation medications and things of that nature, as well as the blood bags, to put the actual logical text on here. I actually put MedTech as the company that produces them. I just filled these guys up. This has red and green Powerade in it, and this has decarbonated Coke Zero in there to give it vaguely the colors they have in the game. Now to actually fill these guys up, it's a little bit of a pain if you're like trying to use like a funnel or something, and so I came up with a slightly different system where I actually took a Lure T-valve and I put two one-directional pump check valves. They're used for fish tanks. And so using a syringe that actually drilled out a little bit more to get higher flow rate, I can now open up this valve, stick this guy in, and then I can simply use this as a pump, you know, bringing liquid in through here, and I can very quickly fill up one of my bags and just close it off, and there you go. So this was just going to sit in one of my pouches, but then I had the idea, well, that's no fun. So why don't I turn one of these into one of these. This is my Stimpak prop, and so it actually is based on this particular item here, specifically so I can still take this end off, hook in my pump, and actually use this now to fill up my bags. Now, all of these parts that are external are actually 3D printed. I have a 3D printed tube here with a little custom spray painted piece of paper to give that kind of weird fade effect that's in the prop, and then a large 3D printed section up here. You can see on the back I actually have a CR2032 battery, and that's because, just for funsies, I decided that I would put a kind of faulty flickering LED light behind the gauge, so that way it's readable at night. And back here you can see I have a little screw thread right here. This is a tapped hole. It actually is also a set screw that locks this bar in, but this guy's there, so if I remove this screw, I've also made a little belt clip that I can clip this guy on nice and easy, and then that way I can display it on my costume quite conveniently. The clip itself was just ripped off of, I think, an old MP3 player or something. It came out of my junk box. This is my jet dispenser. It was actually 3D printed in two pieces. This piece here twists off, and there's an 18650 battery holder mounted in there. That battery is actually powering a small electronics package mounted in here, which includes a pressure sensor. So if I take one of my e-cig cartridges, slide it in here, screw it all the way down, and then I remove this little custom assembler tool I made, Now I have a jet vape, so it does deliver some kind of medication, although, you know, mint flavored non-nicotine. Now if I draw in on this end, it creates a negative pressure system here, and it will turn on a little LED back here. I've also made a few other small items. I made a pair of Vault 55 Vault-Tec dog tags. These were 3D printed and foil taped. That's just, again, another little item for my costume. And then I also made two little pins here, the Party Girl perk and the Charisma perk. These were 3D printed in black, and then I just did all the painting by hand to give them their colors. And the last item is actually my fusion core. This was actually made, I guess, to solve a problem, you could call it, with my shish kebab prop. Hopefully anybody who's watched the news understands that carrying 18650s in your pocket is a bad idea. So this was made with this little magnetic top here to store my extra 18650s so that I could get more energy into my shish kebab to keep running the LEDs when I need them. Now there's another split line down here at the bottom, and that's because there's another magnetic section down here which holds the little e-cigarette fog capsules. So that way I can keep the smoke effects running on both my jet vape as well as the shish kebab prop. And built into the top here, there's these two screws which allow me to, just like with my Stimpak, I can screw on this little belt clip here, which is just made from thin plastic, and I can hook it on my costume and it's not going anywhere. This was all 3D printed as well in a number of pieces. And then there's obviously a whole slew of magnets in here that hold these guys together. So that's kind of the odds and ends, the tiny little items that I've made for my Fallout costume.